everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Experience. My head is super shiny right now because it has a nice clean shave. It's got a little reflection. Plus I have a light that's going on in front of me that's a little bit blinding me. So now I really got a reflection on my head. Just kidding. I love when I had a reflection because you know that's when it's nice and crisp. So we'll go ahead and jump into things. One thing I always want to mention is I truly do value everyone who is listening in on these, and I do hope that I am dropping the absolute bombs and golden nuggets that you're able to take away and leverage in your business, and just share my trials and tribulation as an investor, entrepreneur in the industry. Because one of the things that I just learned recently, that of course I hear things over and over, but after hearing them certain times is when they really just stick for me. And one is, yes, it's great to learn from others' experience and failures. It's great to learn from your own failures, but it's even better to learn from others. Because one thing is, you don't want to be in a real estate deal and it's your first one and you end up failing and absolutely get wiped out. That would not be fun, and that would cause a lot of people to not be in the industry as a whole. So it's good to learn from other failures, meaning that one thing I saw, and this is in the times back in the 2008, 2009, and I've had lenders reach out to me and say on your deals, I know I'm just jumping right into a little bit of a riff right now, is that they say, oh, we can go up to 80, 85% in terms of leverage. And like, no, that's what most people did back when, and ended up getting a haircut and not really lasting too much and having to give their properties back. And they went under. That's the highest I tend to go is 70%. And I would even be willing to go even lower as 60%, just to be on the safe side when it comes to leverage, because it can be a double-edged sword, of course. So one thing I want to mention, those of you who leave a rating, it means the world to me. And also, once you do, whether you're on SoundCloud, I believe this is on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, or even YouTube, go ahead, leave a review, send the screenshot to faye@sterlingwhiteofficial.com. One more time, that is faye@sterlingwhiteofficial.com, FAE@sterlingwhiteofficial.com. Of that screenshot, and 2 people will be entered into the 31-day challenge, and 1 person will be entered into the mentorship program, which is more hands-on with me, where we really go and do a deep dive. So the 31-day challenge is more of a entry level, people are looking to get their first deal, versus the other, the mentorship program is more individuals who are looking to scale their portfolio and get more advanced in some tactics that these people have more of a foundation when it comes to just fundamental business processes, about delegating, about putting processes in places within your business. That way you'll be able to grow that much faster. So those are the types of things that we'll go into, but go ahead, leave a review, screenshot it, then send it to faye@sterlingwhiteofficial.com. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Love going into this specific topic. And those of you who are just now coming across me, I always have to mention this, is just some background on myself. Is Sterling White, born and raised Midwestern child, single mother. Father wasn't around, had a fraternal twin brother that ended up taking a not so good path in life, but he's now figuring things out, and grew up on welfare, food stamps, and I'm sure of any other type of government assistance. So for me, this is where the entrepreneurship birth came into existence, where first product for me was Kool-Aid, then Pokemon cards, and then just fast forward how I got into real estate. I would say the universe in a way. My roommate in college, shout out to AP, Alex on that, is his dad owned a construction company, and that's when he saw that I had some free time during the summers, and that's how I got started in real estate, was the construction side. Didn't so much enjoy the construction, so I was taking the mortar and carrying it and providing it to the bricklayers, and I was doing I was a laborer. So quite intensive, grueling, a great respect for those guys that do that. And that's why I fell in love with real estate, not construction. And I wanted to shift more to be of a investor. So at that time, I was really in the self-improvement. Actually attempted a world record shortly after that, the world's fastest fireman carry. No, I'm not a fireman, for those of you who are wondering. I just wanted to pick a goal that really stretched myself. And I read the book 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and he talks about picking a big goal to ultimately stretch yourself. So when it came time to the actual day of the event, I failed miserably. Actually dropped the person at the 800-meter mark. So it was the world's fastest fireman carry mile, but I dropped the person halfway through. And through that is there was news that was out there, friends, family, people from the local community. I bombed it. But the biggest thing I got from that was, and this was another aha moment for me, is failure even at that scale, that large of a scale. It wasn't a huge, large scale, but I had all these people that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So that was an unlock for me. And then, so this was in my college days. I ended up dropping out college to focus full time on real estate, found a mentor, and got my first deal, 23 years old, no money out of pocket, had no credit score, and then got up to 150 single families, and then shifted to multifamily entirely, was able to get to just under 600 units. So that's a little bit, excuse me guys, a little bit about my story, and not perfect by any means, and still make mistakes to this day, and learning from those mistakes and just working towards being more self-aware of the things that I have strengths in and the things I have weaknesses in, and further hone in on those strengths and put the right people in place to complement those weaknesses. So jumping right into the lessons learned on my very first multifamily deal. So I go into the structure of that. You'll want to revisit episode 6, which is where I go into the details of how I structure that with investors, and also give a backstory on how that all came into fruition. But mainly is it just all started with a cold call going direct to the owner, because didn't have much success going through the broker route with broker sending deals, and it's just not penciling out. So I said, hey, why not beat the brokers to the punch? So there's always a way. One thing during that whole process, I could have just sat on the sidelines and say, well, I'll just wait for the market to turn. If it ever and just due to prior history, it shows that there's always tend to be a correction and everything's tend to not go up. But you never know. It could keep going up for as long as how. So decided to take more control in my own hands. And that's why I ended up taking the path to go direct to owner. So from that, one question that I always get is, how do you know what to provide to your investors? So it's all what they're looking to achieve, but it's just about what the market demands. So if providing a 3 or 4% return cash on cash on a property that is in the ghetto, that is not going to work. Even if you do sell that to an investor in the long run, that will not work for you. That will give you a bad reputation. So it's just based upon the market. You can see what others are offering, and that's a good indication what's in line. Whether on, let's say it's a trying to think of B-type property, B neighborhood, that the returns cash on cash, let's say, are between 8 to 11%. There's maybe a preferred return that's in there of, let's say, 8%, and then anything over, well, don't want to get too much into the technical things, but we'll just say a cash on cash return of 8 to 11%, and then the IRR, which is internal rate of return. If you don't know that, you'll Google it, but it just takes into consideration the cash flow, and then also the sale, and then also a time frame. So IRR between 16 to 20%. So once you get those standards, and you can see that from other individuals that are doing the same thing that you're looking to do, or are doing what you're currently doing, that is what the market is currently bearing. If you have, depending on how your track record is, you may be able to offer lower than that because you have the success in terms of doing overperforming that, and then your investors trust you a little bit more, so you can offer a little bit less because you are more likely to deliver on what you promise. So those are all the things to be in consideration, but just the main premise is just doing a scouting researching of what other syndicators or other operators are currently offering. So that's one way to know what to provide to your partners, investors, to your deals. And then, so I'm going to go into the lessons that were learned on that very first deal, which was a 46 unit. So ended up going up closer to 150 single families, and boom, made the transition to first deal was a 46 unit. Yes. Ended up skipping just, nothing in between. I believe I may have bought a duplex. The team, when I say team involved, that there was a duplex and then just skipped up to 46 units. And then from that is, I felt that managing that many single families was very intensive. And there was close to about 150 transactions. A lot of those were one-off. Some may have been a package of maybe most 3 or 4. So there's all that was involved. And then that very first 46 unit was one buyer, one transaction, one seller, one transaction, and all in one location, versus the 150 single families were in Indianapolis and all scattered throughout Dayton. So to each his own, each model is different, and it just comes down to which one is more in line with where you're wanting to go and achieve in your philosophy. But the lessons that were learned on that deal was, one is reaching up. Reaching up by this, I mean, is once ended up getting that deal under contract, had everything as far as financials that, okay, this is the business plan. This is how it was underwritten, and reached out to others that one on biggerpockets.com. If you're not on biggerpockets.com, you're absolutely losing. It's a completely free resource, and you can learn just about anything on there and network with people, find investors, find hard money lenders. I reached out to people on Bigger Pockets that have been there, done that, and then people in the local community that say, here's my business plan. This is what I'm looking to do. Poke holes in it. And these are the types of renovations. Let me know if I'm missing anything. So that was one lesson, is just reaching up, and people were more than happy to be able to offer insight, because this was just $900,000 in terms of the purchase price. And then there was just a little, what was it? 700,000 or so in terms of additional cash that was raised to put into the property itself as far as renovations. The next is raise more than what you need. This is one lesson I've learned on a later deal, is always raise more than what you need, because you don't want to be in a scenario that if you run out of cash, then you go back to your investors to ask for more. It's better to get more on the front end. That way you don't have to go to your investors. It's best to return the cash if you don't use it versus to go back to them. So that was one thing. Always raise more than what you need on a specific deal, and hopefully your deal does pencil out to where you could do that. Hopefully you're not super tight in terms of whatever your renovation costs are going to be. That's where you can get into trouble. Just speaking from what I've seen others get into that scenario. The next is create a buffer on financials. So on that specific first deal, there was the construction was one thing. So this property was about 50 or 60% occupied, and the rents were below about $75 to $100 on a per unit basis. And there was a fire that occurred in one of the buildings that took down about 6 to 8 units. Gosh. Time is just flying, and my memory is but I know it was about 6 units in that specific building minimally. So it just turned out during the winter months, it was a brutal winter that specific year. So that really pushed back the projections in terms of being able to renovate the units and get residents in at the new rates, which in return, the return suffered. I wouldn't say suffered, but they took a little bit longer to get to that point. It ended up exiting that deal entirely, and I'll get to that at a later point, why the exiting of that specific property. But yeah, it's just creating a buffer, because that there's going to be unforeseen things that you experience once you actually get in and acquire the deal. Such as that could be you've done an audit of all the leases. You walked all the units. Our team has acquired a deal, and it ended up afterwards that one of the managers was actually stealing and making up fraudulent documents. So that's a whole nother topic in itself, but those are the things that you'll experience post acquisition once you actually have the deal and you own it, that some of the information that was provided to you was not as credible as you think. That tends to happen on the more mom and pop side of things. More sophisticated operators tend to not do that, but I know there's still some, but that's just my personal experience. Hopefully it doesn't happen with the more sophisticated operators, more on the mom and pop side. And they may not even intentionally be doing that. It just may be they're just so mismanaged that they just have those types of errors. And the last but not least is going in a more desirable location. So this was about a C minus location, but it was definitely upcoming because it was just on the near side, south side of downtown. So there was a very easy commute from that property to downtown. However, at the same time, it has a little ways to go. It was a standard working class, wasn't ghetto by any means, but so there was that. More desirable location is now what I'm starting to do. The age of the building also, so there's tons of deferred maintenance. And then also the boiler. There was multiple boilers on that property that just ate at the expenses. And then also by it being only a 46 unit, that you're not able to get those economies of scale. So have since sold a 50 unit that I formerly owned and then a 46 unit to move up to larger. So the most recent was 156 units, because when you have that many units that's in one location, it has the ability to support an on-site manager and multiple maintenance techs versus a 46 unit that doesn't have the capacity to really support someone that's on staff and that's able to do the leasing, and you be able to have an office and be able to just be more, have someone overlooking the community. So those are the things that I've experienced. And just to do a summary is one, just reaching up. Once just want to check a second, is reaching up. Once you have that specific deal, when you're making that transition, myself personally was able to get feedback from others who have been there, done that, poked holes in the business plan, and determine that, okay, this is something that you actually need to take a look at. Okay, you need to up the rehab a little bit more. However, even after all of that, still jumped in there and ended up figuring out and learning a lot more things even after getting all that feedback from those individuals. But there's so much research that you can do, education, and get feedback from others, but you will not know until you actually get in there. The second is that to always raise more cash than you need to take care of whatever repairs or whatever improvements that you're going to be doing to the property. Next is create a buffer on the financials. Is always a good thing, just to cover your tracks, because there generally is something that's unforeseen that could pop up that could delay your project. And then the last is just to go better neighborhood in a larger asset to really get larger assets to get that economies of scale. So that's pretty much it. Comment below on some things some learning lessons you've had on some deals for you specifically. I truly appreciate everyone. And as I alluded to, is that those of you who leave a rating, hopefully it's a 5-star rating, that would be phenomenal. Send the screenshot to faye@sterlingwhiteofficial.com, and one person will be entered into the mentorship program, and 2 people will be entered into the 31-day challenge. So and there's absolute tons of content within that, and you'll be able to work personally with me as well. And those of you who want to just be in the mentorship program in general, just shoot an email to sterling@sterlingwhiteofficial.com. Comment below of whatever questions you may have that I have not gotten to. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your lovely day. For me, I don't even know what day it is anymore. For the longest time, I was still writing 2019 on my documents. So have a great one. Thank you. Thanks for listening to The Real Estate Experience. If this has brought you any value, please subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to me. Now go out there and crush it.